Mike Puma, our New York Post Mets reporter, joins us now. And Mike, spring training is here. Can't believe it. And you're down there in Florida, getting ready right before things start to ramp up. And you wrote an interesting article today about the New York Mets offensive lineup. And they are returning a lot of the same players from last year. That was a 101 win season for them, for the New York Mets. And the big question that I think you approached in this article was, is this Mets lineup as it currently stands, is it enough for them this season?
Yeah, you look at it, and on one hand, you say, okay, this is a lineup that finished fifth in MLB in runs scored last year, and I think you would sign up for that again right now if you could have that. But on the other hand, there's a lot of factors that went into it, and you wonder if guys can repeat those kind of years. Everybody's a year older now. And the one thing they really didn't do this offseason was upgrade the lineup. They went heavy on the starting rotation, which they had to uh, with the holes they had there with the Jacob deGrom leaving and the free agents they had. In the bullpen, they had to get Edwin Diaz back, and they had to fill in some holes there. And it was almost like they were out of gas by the time they got around to the lineup, and then they made a last ditch effort to try and get Carlos Correa, and that fell apart. But yeah, you look at this offense, and I think that's the thing most Mets fans look at right now is, are there enough pieces there? And I don't know that there is.
And what's interesting is what you wrote about how the Mets were fifth in baseball when it came to runs per game last year. So they were a high contact team. But something that you also pointed out was the power. Obviously, Pete Alonso hit 40 home runs last year, and Francisco Lindor hit 26. My question to you is where else is that power going to come from for them this upcoming season?
Yeah, this is a team that really made hay on soft contact last year. You look at what their average exit velocity was. I think it was something like 88 miles an hour, which was about 19th in MLB, and their hard hit ball rate was 20th in MLB. And they really got, just about all of it. It seemed like from two guys. When you talk about Alonso and Lindor, now they're gonna need more of that. A guy like Eduardo Escobar, who he came on late in the season in September. He had a huge month, got him National League Player of the Month. But you look around, the outfield, and Mark Canha is not that power guy, and we know Brandon Nimmo's a terrific player, but his game isn't predicated on power. And then they got virtually nothing out of the catching position last year offensively. Tomas Nido had a few highs, but and I think maybe that's the wild card here is where Francisco Alvarez fits in if he's going to play this year, and if he can provide some of that power. He's really got to work on his receiving skills this spring, and if he's in the major leagues, I think they want him behind the plate more than they want him as a DH.
And it's interesting. Obviously, a lot of fans are going to be watching Francisco Alvarez. Will he start on the major league roster when they break camp, or will he be starting in AAA? Another part and element that worked in this offseason was obviously we saw what happened with the Carlos Correa saga going down. And, the Mets reportedly had agreed to a deal, and then they got questions about his ankle injury. So obviously that deal fell apart. Do you expect a player like Eduardo Escobar to have a rebound season like you had mentioned before?
Listen, some of Escobar's numbers last year were comparable to Correa's when you talk about RBIs, home runs. Now, listen, those aren't the numbers people go by so much these days, but it's a number Buck Showalter pointed out, and Escobar's not going to be Carlos Correa probably, but I think the Mets feel there's more in there than what he showed last year, and he was going through some emotional problems. He had some family issues that he was dealing with, and I think after he returned from the injured list late in the year, he was more into it mentally, emotionally, maybe than he had been most of the year. So, because the first half, let's face it, he was largely a disappointment for this team, and that's really the one area they can get an upgrade as third base. I think we know what Mark Canha is, and we know what Jeff McNeil, another high contact guy, and you certainly want him in the lineup, but you're not going to get big power from him. So, but when you look at and say, where can that power come from? I think you got to look and say, you know what, Escobar can have a better year, and it can be there.
And then finally, my last question to you is could you see a guy like Brett Beatty make this roster coming out of spring training?
I think it's going to be tough coming out of spring without an injury. It's going to be tough for him to make that roster. Now, if there's an injury, all bets are off. But I think they really want to give Escobar first crack here and see what he can do. And I don't think they're anxious to make Beatty a left fielder yet, where he's maybe sharing time. I think they want him to develop third base because remember, next year Escobar is only under contract, through this year. So you're looking at next year Beatty being your starting third baseman. So I don't think you want him out in left field half the time. But yeah, I think Escobar gets first crack here, and if you get to the middle of May and it's not working, then you certainly consider the change.
Mike, we know spring training, like we said, it's right around the corner, and you're going to be down there reporting all throughout spring training what's going on, these developments with this New York Mets team. We're looking forward to all the coverage in the future and appreciate you as always, man.
All right. Thanks for having me.